first of all, dude, just from PokeVault to PokéNav, right? I just want to say that I am so grateful that you even went ahead and did this. Just on a personal level, on a professional level, I truly appreciate it, and I can't say that enough, honestly. Um, I wanted to first start by, if you wouldn't mind, would you introduce yourself to my viewer base and kind of let them know, and I would like to know also kind of how you started in the hobby, where your
Mhm.
personal interests are, just a little bit about yourself. If you could give us just the, you know, I don't know, a snapshot into PokéNav.
Yeah. Well, first of all, man, thanks for reaching out to me. I
Yeah, dude.
always truly appreciate those that think highly enough of me to actually want to have a discussion and want to have me as part of their content. So I certainly feel honored by that. So thank you to yourself as well as to your community for welcoming me in. So to start, where to start? So Pokemon for me, much like many people out there, started back in the late 90s. I started with Generation 1, started playing the original games, Red and Blue, went through the TCG all the way up until about the Neo era. And I think,
Mhm.
again, much like a lot of people out there, I got out right after Neo, started to get more into sports, and from a anime standpoint, I started to get more into Dragon Ball Z at that point, and so kind of made my transition out of Pokemon, started to do other things. And then the funny thing is with Pokemon, I didn't take a full hiatus from it. Whereas most people, once they were out, they were out. They never looked back. They didn't play the game. They didn't watch a show, anything like that. And I actually kept up with the show. I always enjoyed the anime to a certain degree. And what's funny is my only real experience with Pokemon on YouTube prior to getting back in 2016 was I used to go on and I used to try to find the original anime episodes. And back then you used to have to watch them in there was like 50 clips in one episode. So you had to watch all those 50 clips in order to complete one episode. So that's kind of what I did. And then in early 2016, at that time, I had graduated from college. I was a practicing financial advisor. And one day, I was in my office and probably should have been working or being more productive, but I decided to start looking on eBay. I was starting to see some things out there, just some collectibles that were interesting me. A coworker of mine actually was into sports cards. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hop online and see what's really out there. And started to come across vintage Pokemon products and especially sealed products, coming across base set unlimited booster boxes, jungle, fossil. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that this stuff is still out there. Had really totally forgotten about it. So immediately I started to, I had enough disposable income. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to jump online and pick some of these up and just hold on to them. Being a financial advisor, I think I was a little bit more privy to maybe potentialities with collectibles or with certain investments. And I said, there can't be that many of these out there. And so I decided to go ahead and pick a few up and hold on to those. And then I started to learn more about PSA grading and graded cards and all of the different facets that we now know as the aggregate of the Pokemon TCG hobby. And then over the course of a few years, just started to learn more, started to garner more products, started to flip products, invest in more products, and that really brought me then to 2020. And in May of 2020, I decided to go ahead and start a YouTube channel because I thought I'm not as nearly tenured as somebody like King Pokemon or Scott Pratt, but I think I do have some things that I've learned along the way that I think would be valuable to share with people. Just information that I wasn't seeing myself out on YouTube, or discussion boards, forums, things like that. So I decided to go ahead and create my YouTube channel, which goes by PokéNav. I started that in May of 2020 and haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching right now, and I'm talking to my guys, if you're not following PokéNav, you need to go ahead and just do that right now. And it will be in the description. And I'm thinking at this point, there might even be an introduction that's going to be happening before we even get into this. And I'll get all my little minions to crawl over to your channel, and you'll have people. Yeah, I'm telling you. Okay, for me, our paths kind of, they run parallel in so many ways. And like on my channel, I try to be, which is probably a mistake, but I try to be everything to everyone, just because I'm a little bit interested in so many different aspects of the TCG. So the way that, okay, I started with first gen. I loved Pokemon. The first card I ever pulled was a Venusaur. It was a base set unlimited, and I put it right in my front pocket, no sleeves. I'll never forget that. I was at the
best
mall.
spot for it when you were a kid, man, was that front pocket.
Safest spot, really. And then throughout, I stopped at Neo also. That's why I started chuckling when you said that, because at the moment that Neo came around, and in my personal life, it was no longer okay publicly to be a Pokemon fan, you know. And I was always a closet Pokemon fan, nerd, 100%. I continued on with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z was acceptable for a few years after Pokemon was no longer acceptable. Like with my, started getting into sports, starting to get, girls are coming around, and I got Pokemon stuff hanging around, so a lot of that going on. And that's when I kind of backed off, on the facially, like, just in public anyway, but I always stayed around. And then I obviously kept my cards. A portion of them my mom threw away, but I always kind of held on to my core cards. And then 2014, 2015 happened. I, just like you, I don't know what got, well, I know what got me into it literally, but I started watching Leonhardt. He came onto my YouTube channel, and he was, at the time, he was probably at 100K subs. So by no means was it, was he small, but he definitely wasn't 1.4 million at the time.
Right.
So I instantly reached out to him because I had established myself in my career. I was already a grown up. I was starting my family, which is way too big now, just like my collection. So I started that back then, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, would you mind if I bought some stuff from you? Like, he was so approachable back then. You could talk to him. He was not so big that he couldn't even, get on the phone or get on an email, but he's what got me into it. I started collecting with his advice. He's like, hey, maybe jump into this. And then I looked at what he was opening, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a box of that. I'm going to buy some of this. What brought me back into opening was Evolutions. And that was in 2016. So that brought me, it felt planned from the Pokemon company. They released this set and they reprinted it. They nuked it into oblivion with reprints. So it was always in my face. I bought a bunch of it and I got back into it. So then I started reaching further back and getting from my childhood. I went into Jungle, into Fossil. I got a base set booster or a Rocket booster box unlimited for $600 back then. I bought a base set unlimited box, green wing variant for $1,400, and that was in 2016. And at that time, it was obscene to pay that much for a booster box.
For sure,
out of control. So fast forward, I maintained the relationship with Leonhardt, and then I made I've made some bigger guys, but probably the two biggest that are probably going to be the most relatable to our fan base is Rusty at TCG. I'm very close to him, and then also Leonhardt. I still do business with Leonhardt to this day, which he has said it's cool to discuss that, but he's so big. He's so big now, it doesn't even matter what you can say.
Everybody does business with Leonhardt one way or another.
Right? There you go. So fast forward to that, and then he's the one that he was one of the ones that said, "Hey, get in front of the camera," and I'm like, "No way!" Like, so if on his channel, if you remember, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, he opened up a box of Supreme Victors, and I was the one that sold him that. And I've sold him Majestic Dawn, a bunch of other bigger boxes that he didn't have. So I've been doing that kind of business, and that box, the Supreme Victors, is worth like 15 grand right now or something like that. And I keep telling him, like, dude, I sold you that for $1,000. Like, you owe me. But no, that's how I got into it, man. And the making money part of it, which I want to talk to you about, that's the main reason But just the love of the TCG has pulled me in front of the camera, and because I've always been behind the scenes kind of guy, and that's what kind of attracted me to you, because I resonated so much. Like, so you were throwing plays out that I was thinking of but not saying, and like the things that you were saying, they resonated with me, because at heart I'm kind of very conservative with the way that I go about buying Pokemon, and the things
Mhm.
that you were saying really spoke to me, which is why I reached out personally. So
Yeah, yeah, no, it all makes sense, man, and it doesn't matter. I've spoken to so many people out there, and it really doesn't matter who you talk to, their origin story or
yeah,
what reignited their passion with Pokemon. It's all very similar because we're all, most of the people that we speak to are all around our age. We're all around now, 30 to probably
yep,
35, or even like, maybe 27 to 35 years old. So we all grew up around the same time. We had the same hobbies, the same things that we did as kids. And then, much like you, a lot of people out there, when Evolutions came out, when the 20th anniversary came out, when Pokemon Go came out, I don't think there is nearly as much emphasis placed upon how pivotal Pokemon Go really was for the hobby. Because
so
prior
true.
to that, I mean, I could remember going into stores, into the Walmarts and Targets. People that are just getting into the hobby are now like, but they still have Pokemon cards in Walmarts and Targets. But you could go back then, and they had, the black and white era sets, XY sets, and nobody bought them. They just sat on shelves. Nobody was buying them. And then when Pokemon Go came out, I can remember that very vividly, because it was after I had really got back into the hobby, and it just exploded at that point. And Pokemon, like you said, they gave the dagger to all of us when they released Evolutions.
That was a brutal, that was a yeah, that was because I was already collecting. The dagger for me was that they brought that set out, which brought me into opening, because I was always
Mm,
very strict about not opening. And then
mhm.
they brought in that set and all. And yeah, like you were saying, like, the the Pokemon Go, Logan Paul, all these different things that have been happening. I've always been here. So like all these people are experiencing around me like this Pokemon awakening. I'm like, I've been hooked since 2014, 2015, and like
Yeah.
all these other things are bringing them in. Okay, on this topic, I need to know, Nav, what is going on with the Pokemon market currently? I just did a video about this, but I want to know your thoughts. What's the
Mhm.
status? What's the health? I know that's a broad stroke. I don't want to go into deep level analytics, because that's not what my guys come for. I I want to know what your opinions are on the current status of the market and the health of the market.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm much in agreement with people like, and you'll hear it reverberated across the higher tiers of collectors and investors. King Pokemon, Scott Pratt, they'll all say the hobby is actually very healthy right now. What we
Yep.
have done at this point is we've sort of weeded out the casual collectors. We sort of weeded out the fickle investors, the fickle collectors, people that got in during a fad, and that happens all the time. And it doesn't matter if it's collectibles and you're in it for the fun of it, or if you're an investor and you're trying to get in for an opportunity. There's always going to be those type of people. And I think what we're starting to see now is that a lot of those type of people are migrating out of the hobby. So we're starting to return to a little bit of normalcy, much in the level that we experienced back in, I would say, mid to late 2019. Now, all it takes, again, we've already talked about some big occurrences, Pokemon Go, evolutions. We've got the 25th anniversary coming out. Maybe we have another big celebrity that does a big box break, or another big investor out there that says, hey, Pokemon is here to stay. And guess what? Maybe modern is the way to go. All it really takes is some kind of influence or big occurrence to really see that hype jump right back up again. But as a whole, I still think that the market is very healthy. We're seeing, when people see things like price drops or retraces, they see that as that the hobby, or that Pokemon as a long-term investment is not suitable, that it's not a viable alternative investment. And in fact, that's what you really want to see. in an investment. You don't want to see these super highs and super lows. What you want to see is you want to see a gradual incline, a kind of plateau, and then somewhat of a stagnation. And then you just want to see over time that asset is increasing. I mean, when you compare Pokemon, let's compare Pokemon to the financial markets. And I promise you, I'm not going to get into any analytics here. Most people probably know these numbers already. But if you take the financial markets and you take a benchmark like the S&P 500, okay? The average rate of return for the S&P 500 over the last 20 years is about 8%. So when I got into Pokemon, I was saying to myself, if I can get something that will give me a year over year annualized return like the S&P 500 at 8%, I'll be happy. But when people were getting into Pokemon, and very often that's what it was for a few years, that's kind of what you were getting, 8, 10, 15, maybe 20% return. But then when people jumped in 2020 and you're seeing 300, 400, 600% return over the course of a few months, that comes to be the expectation for a lot of people, especially those that have no background in collectibles specifically, but more generally in investing and especially in other markets. So in a nutshell, I truly think that the hobby is very healthy at this point. There's going to be retraces on certain products, which we were all expecting, right? We were all expecting certain things. A very good example would be like a base set unlimited Charizard PSA 9. Well, guess what? If you look at the population reports on that card, especially in a PSA 9, I mean, it's over 5,000. My good buddy James Carson from Z&G Emporium, he will tell you that since he got in with Graded Gem, which is a middleman grading service, the number one card that they had submitted to them was base set unlimited Charizard. Now, why is that? We've been talking about this, that most of the people that are going to be watching us here today are of our age. They're of our demographic. Okay. So when they started to find Pokemon again, when they started to see, hey, Pokemon's a thing, Pokemon's really popular, these cards are going for crazy prices, they probably did just like you and I. They went into maybe their parents' house, or they went into their closet, they pulled out their binders of Pokemon cards, and guess what they probably had in there? Base set, Jungle, Fossil, Team Rocket, and Charizard has always been the gold standard. So every single person that had that card, guess what? They're getting it graded. So that's why you're seeing retraces on certain products. If we fast forward maybe to Modern, I think Modern, in my opinion, Modern is probably one of the safest long-term investments that you can get into. And the reason being is, let's say that you're purchasing it even at retail price or even below retail price, you have essentially created somewhat of a price floor for your investment. It is very unlikely that over the course of 5 years, 10 years, that product is going to fall below what you initially purchased it for. So for people that are wanting to be more conservative, people are like, I don't feel comfortable in investing in these high-end products or these products that have a lot of volatility, much like graded cards. Sealed Modern products is actually a great avenue to go down, I think, for a lot of people who don't want to put so much risk out there in other types of collectibles, or more specifically, other types of Pokemon investments.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. So, like with we only have 4K subs, but there is a very finite group that are constantly berating me on what is happening with the market. Is it safe? And it's actually pushed a lot of my more recent content is to kind of to squelch those fears. And I like what I always mention is there's a big difference between a crash and a correction, in my opinion, or like you're saying, a retrace. And I would like to, I'm more interested in baselines over a little bit of time. Our old baseline was over many years, let's just say from 2014 to 2019, and for a long time, a base set booster box went from about $1,000 to about $4,000 in that time period. So that was really great growth in that time. But then you go, now the new baseline, in my opinion, I go on PokemonPrices.com, and they say they have a base set box at 30 grand. I think it's lower than that. Personally, I could probably go out and find a box for 20. But even still, at 20, That's huge growth. That's huge growth. And I mean, if you were an investor and you were doing this in the market, you'd be a connoisseur. You'd be a genius. You know, you would
Hmm.
know, you would have the market cornered. But I try to tell them, like, just because it went up, a booster box was sold at $65,000 at the peak of Logan Paul and all this stuff.
Hmm.
I feel bad for that one person. You know, but that was, yeah, that was the peak. I always like, I'm with you when you say that I think it's more healthy than it's ever been, because we're actually seeing some stabilization, which is
Hmm.
not beneath the previous baseline. So anything in between there, I'm cool with that. If obviously if prices dropped 30% in a day, I'd be scared, I guess. But even still, if it's above the baseline, where I came in, I'm still okay with it, and there's still room to
Hmm.
grow. And then as far as modern goes, so like I said, we're not diving into, you know, really micro kind of logistics or, you know, numbers. I always say to my viewer base, let's say you get a like right now, I just told them that Champions Path for me is a good buy. Okay, I'll take Champions Path for example. The set itself, in my opinion, is weak. Okay, as a collector, as you know, trying to go for chase cards, it has three specific chase cards, one of which you get for free in an ETB, and then there's a
Hmm.
Shining Charizard and then a Rainbow Charizard. Okay, just because of those three, I always follow the lizard around because that's where the money is. If you can get a pack of Champions Path for $7 right now, and I always say, do you think that in 2 years from now, this pack is going to be worth less than $7? Then don't buy it. If you think it may be worth more than $7 in 2 years, then buy it
Hmm.
and hold it, you know,
Hmm.
and see what happens. Like the ETB for Champions Path right now, for me, I don't know how many ETBs there are in the hobby where you get a guaranteed Charizard. So long term, stuff like that, where it's like super unique, like the Mewtwo and Charizard tins, stuff like that, where it's like you have guaranteed bangers that are in there. I always say I like to hover around those, and that's where I like to put the majority of my money, and not take huge risks on other stuff that, you know, I may not know. But I couldn't
Hmm.
agree more with you. Long term, like I've been telling people, Darkness Ablaze for me, the set's strong. It has a Charizard chase card, which isn't like it's not a premium card. It's not, you know, at the bottom end of when you look at the list of cards, right? But it's in there.
Hmm.
And for $140 right now, $150 in 2 years, is that box going to be worth more than that? I would say probably. Once it goes out of print, people
Yeah.
are looking for it. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know.
Well, and also the other thing that we have to take into consideration is the proliferation of opening products. How many
Oh,
people are going to have those strong hands to keep products sealed for the long term? And on top of that, how many people are really going to be in it for the long term? How many people are going to be able to hold those products for 5 years? How can they sit on it? Can they sit on that inventory for that amount of time? Because what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of people out there that aren't and that
right.
can't. And I remember I had a another podcast with my good buddy Jules, and we were talking about it early. Well, I would say, yeah, or at least earlier this year, probably late last year, where I was saying there will come a point where you will be able to weed out the real investors, the real collectors from the have-nots. And it'll
Yeah.
be those people that they will sell at the first sign of distress. And that's exactly what you're seeing through this period of time. It really started, in my opinion, right around March or so. You started to see a lot of sell-offs. You started to see a lot of undercutting. You're starting to see that more now with modern products too. For instance, like battle styles. A lot of people don't know the back end stuff about modern products and how it's distributed and how allocations work. With battle styles, it was a unique set in that Pokemon said they choose these sets every so often. And they basically say, we're going to print to demand on this particular set. Now, there's theories behind why this might be with battle styles having a brand new mechanic with the single strike and rapid strike. They could have been trying to appeal to their players out there. But long story short, it was print to demand. So for me as a third party dealer, or more specifically for my distributor Rocky, he could put in for whatever he wanted. So if he wanted 5,000 boxes of battle styles, they were going to guarantee him 5,000 boxes. They would print to demand. Now, I said this in a previous video. Why didn't we see the same prices on Battle Styles booster boxes back then that we are now? You know, close to almost $100 a booster box. Well, the reason being is Pokemon said, we will give you whatever we can in this first wave. There's going to be 2 waves. We will give you whatever we can in the first wave. And then in the second wave, you will get everything else that was in your order. So let's say that for the first wave, you only got 500 booster boxes. Well, that second wave comes around. Well, guess what? Battle Style is not so popular anymore. Much as we always do in Pokemon, we're always looking for the next set. So there's more emphasis now on Chilling Reign. We just had EV Heroes, so there's a lot of hype around that. Battle Styles has kind of gone to the wayside. Well, guess what? 4,500 boxes are coming in. And now all of these LGSs, these third-party dealers, they're all trying to basically clear their inventory, because I think a lot of them forgot, hey, guess what? There's 4,500 boxes that are coming in that they weren't used to before, right? Because they were used to, like with Shining Fates or Vivid Voltage, where they'd say, all right, I'm going to put in for 5,000 boxes, but I might get 100. You know what I mean? So that, I think they had the same kind of mindset going in, and just maybe didn't think about the long-term game in this. So now that's why you're seeing a lot of these boxes going for so cheap. But as we move forward, there's no expectation that we're going to have a similar occurrence with the sets released throughout the rest of the year. So again, and the reason that I bring that up is that what a lot of people have a tendency to do is they look at these little microcosmic events in the hobby, and they aggregate that out to be a summation of the whole. So when people see a Battle Styles booster box now going for, you know, close to, you know, around $110 on average, they say, oh, it's turned, the hobby's turned around. Pokemon's producing at maximum capacity. The prices are going to be low for sets going forward. And I can tell you right now, that's not going to be the case. And I can also tell a lot of people out there listening right now, for your pre-orders for Chilling Reign, we've already seen this with EV Heroes, right? A lot of people who put in their pre-orders with EV Heroes got them canceled. They got scammed. There's so many scammers out there, or have now just been priced out of trying to get products, at least at this point. I can tell you that there are a lot of people out there, especially eBay, that are taking pre-orders for Chilling Reign that are not going to get fulfilled. So you can go in and they're say, hey, I'll get you a Chilling Reign booster box for $135 or $130. And we see this time and time again with every set that comes out, all of these sellers that promise pre-orders that never fulfill on their promises.
Yeah, that happened to me with Shining Fates, because I was starting my channel at the time. So I wanted to get anything that I could, and it was impossible to get. And then I have 3 different people that I get product from, one of which is, like you said, like he is a dealer, but he can never get his allocation filled. And it's been happening to him more and more. Now with Battle Styles, I got a call this morning saying, hey, how much Battle Styles can you take and put on your eBay store? Because I have an eBay store also. I'm like, at those right now, I'll take, you know, I'll take X amount, and that's it. And he goes, no, I need you to take more. I'm like, because I know he is sitting on a mountain of product, and I'm like, listen, and he has to move it to reallocate funds. He can't just sit on it. And I'm like, it'll go up. You know, you just got to give it time. Someone's going to want Battle Styles for $200 for a box in a couple years. And I can't tell you how many of those conversations I had. And then with other people too, $110 for a booster box for me, that used to be the norm for me. That's when I used to go on eBay and get on an auction at 2 a.m. and try to get a box of Evolutions for $98, including shipping. That was back then. And that's what people remember. Evolutions for a booster box, obviously it's not the same set as Battle Styles, granted. But Evolutions was $100 for a booster box all day. You could get a brick of 6 for $550, including shipping, all day.
Yeah. Dude, I used to get Evolutions as early as, like, I think it was around like February or March of last year. I was getting Evolutions booster boxes for $80 a box.
Now
nobody wanted them, right? Everybody was like, I don't want these anymore. So I'm like, you know what? I see potential here. I'm going to hold on to these because I think it's going to turn the corner relatively soon. So I bought multiple cases of Evolutions booster boxes, and
Genius.
Again, we've seen
Genius.
retraces on it, which, I mean, it's going to happen, right? It's
I'm
ebbs
happy to
and
see it.
flows.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to I'm happy to see it, to be honest, because if I saw evolutions go off the rails, um, it, and you know what, the retraces are happening obviously because it was nuked in reprints, in my opinion. A lot of people opened it, but I think there's a lot of evolutions out there that people don't know about quite yet. And there's guys that are holding on to a lot of it that are maybe just kind of injecting it slowly back into the market. But now you're
It's
seeing, like
possible.
you were saying, you're seeing those guys that are just, they're taking the best offer, they're throwing them up on auction, when before they were doing $1,000, buy it now. No question is, all right, let me move us into the next part of this. And I'm going to hit you with the curveball right here. I don't know if it's going to be an easy question for you or a hard question, but it was a question that was asked to me that I'm going to defer to you, because I don't believe that I don't know if I have the right answer, but it might be nice to talk to you about it. Big box distributors, because of certain things that happen in Target. Let's say there's an incident in Target where people fought over some Pokemon cards, maybe some sports cards. They're moving away from shelving product. Do you think that helps or hurts what scalpers in general? I know scalpers, like you mentioned something that earlier, that they might be moving out of the hobby a little bit, right? But let's say there's still guys that are kind of trying to snipe those early releases. They're sniping the where they get reallocations in the big box distributors, where they're getting restocked. Does that help them that they're removing it from big box, or help them or hurt them?
Well, first of all, what I can tell you is that it's not going to be a permanent solution. Okay. Walmart and Target, they're going to bring Pokemon cards back. And I think there's two big reasons. And this is just my opinion. I don't know this for a fact, but I think there's two big reasons why they remove product from shelves. One is because of the problems that they had. It's honestly, if you remember back to the late 90s, early 2000s, we used to have similar problems
We had the same
back
problems.
then.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big reason. They probably just did not want to have to worry about that happening in their stores. The next thing is Walmart and Target, they have big contracts with Pokemon, right? I mean, most of them, most of the manufacturers for products within their store, they have big contracts with. Now, Pokemon, we already know that there is such a limited supply of products being released, especially with new products. It is my opinion that Pokemon was not able to fulfill the supply requirements that would allow them to keep these products in their stores. So I would like to think that that Walmart and Target doing this is strictly an egalitarian reason, but I know that they, being the stores that they are, being the behemoths that they are, they need to be able to meet their bottom line on the products that they're carrying. And if Pokemon is not able to fulfill the demand that they're requiring, it's not like a local LGS where they're beholden to a certain, distributor or to Pokemon in general, where they're relying upon that in trying to meet their bottom line. Target and Walmart can say, you know what, that's okay, we won't carry it. You guys aren't meeting the supply that we need to meet our bottom line anyway. We already are having these problems with scalpers and people, fighting in stores. We'll just eliminate it for now. But that being said, I can almost guarantee you that when supply does get back to normal, when Pokemon is able to manufacture products at the capacity that they were doing before and able to meet demand, guess what? You're going to see that product go right back on shelves in Target and Walmart.
Bro, okay, I have chills right now, because you literally, you've exceeded every expectation that I've had, because I know you weren't particularly ready for that question. So you and I actually have the same theory, and I'll kind of explain my side of it. That's so cool that you even said that, because I was expecting you to say, oh, no, it's, what, they're gone forever, or what. I think they are, in part one, trying to let the machines cool off with Pokemon, because we can't even begin to understand the amount of cardboard that these big box retailers move for these TCGs. I mean, it is one of their major legs of distribution, right? So there's that. And they've had long standing relationships with them. So they're probably having high level conversations on how to correct stock flow and redistribution, how to get things back on track, right? Because Pokemon obviously knows that they have not a printing problem, but they have maybe like a supply versus demand problem right now, right? So they're trying to right that ship. And then also thinking of it from Target's point of view, knowing all of these things, I think too, I've been to Target at 6 a.m. They're having to spend extra time and money and just everything else to accommodate people, not only for Pokemon though, because a lot of times people forget the sports card, game is out of line right now. I don't even know about that side of it, but that gets thrown in with Pokemon too, because they're right next to each other on the shelf. People are waking up at 6 a.m. to go get their, and are they having to hire more security? Are they having to have people there earlier to manage the line that's developing outside of Target? They might be using extra, just resources to accommodate these people that are looking for this stuff. Maybe they're not even making a net profit after everything's said and done. And they know that it's just going to be a guy that comes in there and, he's going to bring his whole family, because that's what I would do, and buy 2 things a person, and then they've taken everything. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've told people that, I'm like, it's not in Targets and Walmarts right now, let's say, and they're backing away, but it will be back once they figure some mechanics out, I think. So I was happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, and what I've never really understood that they haven't implemented was the same thing that they did back in the late 90s and early 2000s, where they took all sort of. What I remember was that they put it behind the customer service counters. And the only way that you could buy products is you went up to the customer service counter and, they had all the products displayed behind there. And you would say, I'd like a couple packs of this, couple packs of that. And then they would provide it to you. I don't remember there being like certain allocations back then. But then again, I was just a kid. So it's like my parents were like, okay, you get 2 packs.
Dude, you were just happy to get your hands on a base set pack, man.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And $4.99, oh my God. It's to pry $4.99 out of my mother's purse back then was brutal. The promises never kept, all the I wills, I'll do it, I'll be good. Okay, all that stuff. No, but I remember, like, for me, I don't know about in your area, but like for me, KB Toys was a big thing, right? Toys R Us. It was always behind glass, or it was so much more back then than it was now, but you'd have the glass cases in your local card shop, and there'd be an open base set booster box, there'd be an open jungle, open fossil, and you go in and just say, hey, can I just get one off the top? And that was it. There was no, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to buy all the boxes. But you're so right. If they would just, and maybe they're going to take this time to figure out how to do that too, on a big scale. Okay. Yeah. Dude, I can't believe we have, okay. Anyway, my last question for you, and they kind of run in tandem, and I know we're not jumping around too much. One conversation's led into another, and you mentioned something about graded cards. So personally, that's where I've always kind of reallocated my gains when it came to Pokemon. So I would buy loose cards, I would grade certain ones of them, and then I would redistribute them back into the market. And I would never try to time it. So like even right now, I'm still selling cards that I should be quote unquote holding on to, PSA 10s, shining cards, whatever it is. I still redistribute those back into the market so I can reallocate funds, because there's money that I want to put elsewhere. I'm maybe done with certain cards. PSA moving to AI, to the artificial, and for those of you that don't know, PSA is moving to a artificially enhanced machine that will help, and this is not take over, but assist graders with centering, with surface condition, with hollow condition. Do you think that is going to help or hurt grading in general? And maybe not so much it could be for both. I think, modern cards are going to be in better shape, but maybe for vintage cards, is that going to hurt us or help us there?
I think it all depends upon what people consider as hurting and helping, and where you're placing that value, right? Because for graded cards, the value has always been a financial value. It's been a premium that is garnered by having those raw cards graded and creating a much higher premium on that card once it is graded. Now, for me, what I'm looking at with this, and why I was actually very excited to see that they had implemented AI. And for many of the people out there that follow me, I was actually calling this a long time ago, saying that because we saw a little bit with CGC, right? They use a little bit of a combination of AI in their grading as well. And I was thinking to myself, why isn't PSA implementing something similar so that they can get through the backlog of products? And beyond all else, for me, the most important thing when I'm having my card graded is consistency. Like, there we go. Dude, yeah.
Dude, I'm not kidding. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's consistency. So I've said it before that if you had an AI system where you had a card, this particular card, and you ran it through this machine, this algorithm 10,000 times. It does not matter how many times you ran it through, it would come back in that exact same grade every single time. And the reason that I like that is, one, you know that the card that you're getting back and the grade that you're getting back, that's it. That's what you're getting. If you're going through that company, it would be great if it was ubiquitous across the board, like if every grading company offered a similar thing to where it really didn't matter who you were going with, you were going to get the same grade across the board. And then there's other value props that companies can offer beyond that. That consistency factor is then taken out. I mean, beyond that, it's really expensive to get your card graded now with PSA, right? It's really expensive. They just raised their prices.
Is $20 base level. Before they closed, it was $20. That was the cheapest.
Mm-hmm. So it's the prices are going up. And when you start to implement things like technology, your economies of scale can grow, and your overhead, it's, people may not like to hear this, but that means less human hands on those cards. Now, humans, from an employee standpoint, you have to pay them. They got their vacations. They could be having a bad day. There's a lot of costs that go into having a human workforce in there. If this is all just strictly AI, you're getting consistency, right? Now, if you're lowering your overhead costs, you're increasing your economies of scale. What does that mean? Prices should naturally come down. So that means to the average person, to have your card graded should actually become cheaper the more that you fully integrate AI into the grading process. So all in all, I think that AI is actually a really good thing for the hobby. Now, there's a lot of people out there that would say, well, what about all the cards that were graded pre-AI? Are they going to be devalued because they were just strictly graded by a human being? And honestly, I think we're still a ways off before we're fully AI based. I think you'll still have human graders in there to maybe double check. Maybe there's certain features about a card that maybe an algorithm just cannot pick up on, especially in the beginning, because an AI system has to build upon previous data points, right? So you're going to have some subjectivity in there in order for the AI to pick up on those and build upon those data points. So I think, for all those cards that were graded prior to that, I don't see there being a whole lot of effect on that market personally. I think that a PSA 10 is always going to be a PSA 10. A lot of people have said, well, is it going to be more difficult now to get a PSA 10? And we may see the exact opposite, where it is more difficult to get a PSA 10. So all of those cards that were pre-AI may start to garner a premium, all those PSA 10s that were out there. But in my opinion, I actually welcome that. I welcome the fact that it may be more difficult to get a PSA 10, because when you do, it's very special. And then it definitely warrants that premium that it should have in the first place. And guess what? We're seeing that right now with CGC. How many CGC 10s do you see out on the open market?
I don't know that I've ever actually seen one.
I've never seen one either. I've never seen a CGC 10. So that just goes to show you when those CGC 10s do come out, whatever card it is, that is going to fetch a really high value, and as well it should, because those cards are going to be very, very low. And you can
Just
also
like a
divide this
BGS 10.
up. Yeah, exactly.
Plus,
Just like a
yeah.
BGS or
Black label.
a black label. Exactly. Those garner the value that I think they're deserving of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't, so I get a lot on my channel. I get a lot of heat for not being completely up to date on contemporary type Pokemon, right? But where my knowledge base really, really lies with vintage, and specifically with grading. And because I've always been, even when grading was kind of like no one did it, and it was so difficult to do. I mean, there is the PSA's system to submit a card is very stringent, number one. And I don't think a lot of people kind of know about that or have experienced that, but that's number one. Number two, I came from the days, I started when they were at 1 point something million. I mean, where the cert started with 1. So that was my first grade, right? So that was a long time ago. For me, there was a big divide between certs that start with 2 and certs that start with 3. That's where they start. Certs that start with 2, and you'll know what I mean. I think it's in the 20 millions if I'm not mistaken, but that's what that signifies. Things that are PSA 7s and 8s now may have gotten a PSA 10 back then, because I don't think they really knew what they had, number one, in a business. And then number two, I don't think that they kind of carried the same strictness level or however they graded. And then in my opinion, I think they implemented some sort of kind of, I don't know how, but a certain percentage that could only fetch a 10 out of a certain group. That's how it felt. Because before I used to get a lot of PSA 10s, and I'm talking about vintage. Contemporary, you can get a lot of PSA 10s in the submission. But I started to feel like the PSA 10s were harder and harder to get to. And then they introduced AI. I've been telling my closest friends, my family that are in the hobby, I think PSA 10s, if you're going to invest in anything vintage right now, even if it comes at a premium, I think PSA 10s are going to be the place for me personally. That's where a lot of my money gets reallocated to, is buying that really. So like an example, I bought a base set unlimited Lapras PSA 10 for $1,000. At the time but the pop is like so low. It's pop 30s, right? Pop 20s, whatever it is. What I'm telling people is these cards are never going to not be 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. They're going to only deteriorate with time. So the more time that goes on, I think those PSA 10s are going to naturally, the value of those are going to pull upwards. Even if they're retracting right now, this is a great time to buy, especially for PSA 10s. I personally love the fact that they're moving to AI, because I want, like you said, more consistency. And I almost want to see the PSA 10, even if it's at the I'm losing the word I'm looking for, but even if I lose from it financially, like business wise, because I'm not going to get as many PSA 10s to resell or collect or whatever, I'd like to see more, like less of them, so that the ones that are there, maybe they pull up in value. And then the ones that do happen after the AI truly were fitting of receiving a PSA 10, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that
totally.
the AI is being introduced.
Totally. Yeah. And the other thing that I would, in my personal opinion, that I would recommend to others out there to look into are CGC 9s and CGC 9.5s. It's very, they're huge bargain, huge. I just here a couple weeks ago, I lost out on a Neo Genesis Lugia, and it was in a CGC it was a CGC 9. And I went in ahead. The bid was like at that point, it was sitting like $1,100. I went in, went way overhead. I put in at $2,000, and right at the end.
First edition or unlimited?
This is unlimited.
Okay.
And I lost out on it there at the very end. But the point that I'm making here is it's very, very difficult to try to get those level of cards in that grade in CGC. And that's what I would really recommend that you guys look into, are the same cards that have always been popular, but trying to get those in a near mint or gem mint status in CGC, because they are trading at a huge discount right now when compared to their PSA counterparts in the same condition.
And those, and I tell people, because those are the ones that obviously have the biggest, I guess you would say, risk factor, only because they have you have to you have to allocate the most amount of funds towards them. But
Hmm.
I would also argue that they probably have the biggest reward factor. And if they're a unique card, like you're saying, the Lugia, which is in the corner looking down, all that hollow, I love that. I love that art. Those are the ones that are going to fetch the premium later on, because they're so unique, they're so wanted. I mean, you know, it's everything a kid, a kid at heart like us could ask for, looking back to our childhood. Especially now, let's move us 10 years ahead, when we're in our 40s and we really have some money to move around. We're going to throw,
Hmm.
we might throw down 5,000 on that card just to have it in our safe, or in
Yeah.
my case, a
Yeah.
vault, my garage.
Hmm.
So,
Well,
all right.
and that's one of
Oh,
the things that I've mentioned a lot, is that really the best approach is to diversify it. So that to me would be a little bit more on the risky and the more aggressive type of investing style. And there's a whole spectrum that we used to use in the financial markets to determine like what type of investor you are. You conservative, moderate, moderately aggressive, or aggressive. And to me, there's Pokemon products that fit within each of those categories and each of those investor types. And I think that it's good to have a combination of all of those different things, and to understand where you fall. Where do you fall in that risk tolerance spectrum? And then you can kind of determine where most of your allocation of products should lie. And then you can have a small portion. Let's say that you are a moderate or moderately conservative. You do have maybe those one or two products that you've taken a risk on, but your overall portfolio is going to be able to carry you over the long term.
couldn't agree more. And what I tell people at the end of the day, do what feels right. Invest in what you love, number one, and
For
then
sure.
you can invest in the stuff that you don't like or that you want to take risk on. But you know, like for me, I started with what I loved and what I wanted to collect, which I've never sold, and then
Hmm.
it kind of grew into a side business, And I always said, just go do what feels right, and don't ever overextend. Really understand what
Yep.
your income is per month, where your money's going, how much you have left over, and always budget for a rainy day. Aside from everything else that you're doing, never
Hmm.
overextend, because then that's when you panic sell. That's when you sell the one card that you loved, and then you see 2 years later it's worth triple, and then you're beating
Yep.
yourself up. Don't Always do what you can within your four walls.
Yeah, no, it's
Yep.
very important. I mean, that is a very good characteristic to have, is financial stability and financial savviness, and not over leveraging yourself, as you said, overextending. And also on top of that, when you are buying products that you do have a sentimental attachment to, or that you do enjoy, guess what? If that market does fall, if we do see the retraces there, if you have an attachment to it and it's something that you enjoy, you are going to be much less likely to want to let that go. One, because you've got a firm foundation financially, but two, because you truly enjoy the things that you're actually purchasing. I've said this before, man. It's one of the big like dilemmas that I think we all face, right? I have stuff that I know, I'm like, you know what? I should sell this, but I've got such an attachment to her. I just like, I can't. It's more like the rational side of me is like, it would be best to just sell this right now, take the gains on it. But the collector inside of me says, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Do you know how many times my wife brings up at least once a week that I should have sold my base set box at 50K? When all this was going down, you could left and right, they were selling for 48, 50,000. And I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
and then I don't do it. And then I'm like, no, don't worry. It'll go to 100 or something. I just said something. So she just like, back off. Now it's back down to 20. And she's like, you idiot. Yeah, I told you, so, but I can't,
Well, and
I would still regret it to this day.
for sure. Well, and it's always the thought, especially when you're selling some of those more higher end products, you have the thought in the back of your mind, if I sell it now, I may never get this back.
Get it again.
I may never have this in my hands again.
Bro.
It'll never be mine. And so it's a big dilemma. And I mean, I guess it's a good dilemma to have in some cases, but sometimes it takes over your more rational self, what the more rationally, financially sound self, what that part of you would make the decision on.
Bro, on that note, I'm going to call it. I want to thank you. You are just awesome for doing this. I don't know. I'm eternally grateful. And if you're still sticking around for my guys, if you don't go in the description right now and click on this dude's channel, I'm going to come to you myself. Okay. I appreciate you so much, Nav. you're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm a proud subscriber of your channel. And this has been the best. This has been the best, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing that I've done with this channel so far, the most fruitful. And I don't know, I don't know how else to say that, man. Thank you so much.
Well, I truly appreciate it, man. I mean, those kind words mean a ton to me. And above all else, what I really wanted to accomplish when I started my YouTube channel is this right here: being able to connect with people in the community, being able to make friends, being able to just have conversations with people that I otherwise never would have been able to have had I not started in this medium. And so much in the same way that you're grateful to me, I'm also very much grateful that you would have me on, that you would even introduce me to your audience, because it's just that many more people that we can connect with and really build this community to be even better. I've said it before that I think right now we're really setting the foundations for this hobby for years to come. And the people, the content creators, the collectors, the investors, let's do the best that we can to lay a firm foundation, to lay a great foundation, so that this hobby can be around for the long term, so that people can enjoy it for the long term. And just treat others with respect. There's a lot of varying personalities out there, opinions, things like that. Understand that this hobby should welcome everyone. No matter which way you want to enjoy Pokemon, you should be able to do so. And I feel really grateful, and I'm sure you do as well, that we are passionate about a hobby that does offer so many things to so many people. So yeah, just a big thank you to you as well for having me on. Big thank you to your community. And if you ever want to do it again, just let me know.
And that's what I was going to say, man. As long as you and I continue to make content, we'll keep leveling up. 10,000 turns into 20, 20 turns into 50. Then we're at 100,000. Then we're looking back on this and be like, oh my God, look at my background. Like, what was I thinking?
I'm keeping Pikachu around for the long term. That's Colonel Pikachu.
I'm going to have to move my water heater and my motorcycle. But other than that, no, man. But listen, dude, let me get a couple more thousand subs, and then I'll come at you again, and we'll have another discussion and see. And then maybe we'll be able to reflect on this combo and see where we're at in the hobby at that point.
Definitely. No, it's always fun, man. It's always fun to look back and see where, how far you've come, and you as well, man. You've come such a long ways in such a short amount of time. It's really cool to see. And it's cool to see that it's happening to a person like yourself, somebody that truly cares about the community and what you're doing.
Well, and you should take a little credit, because you were absolutely the first person that I wanted to speak to, and you were the first person, of course, that said yes. So that should speak volumes to my people about you, whoever, so that's it, man. You're an awesome dude.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you so much. Yeah, I guess I'll catch you on the next one if we want to do that, right?
Definitely. Just give me a buzz, man. Shoot me a DM or something. I'm here.
There it is, Nav. All right, dude. Take it easy, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.